So former RBA player Shaquille O'Neal hits LeBron James with the kill switch with the truth. Shaquille O'Neal gets Shaquille O'Real with LeBron James. Big Shaq goes Big Show from WWF on LeBron James. Well, this is the Big Show. Straight choke slam LeBron James. Shaquille O'Neal mops the floor with LeBron James. I mean, with no Mr. Clean or no Fabuloso. I mean, if getting swept with a gigantic broom by the Denver Nuggets wasn't enough for LeBron James, but this man gets the swifter treatment from Shaquille O'Neal. But Shaquille O'Neal exposes LeBron James's longevity. Shaquille O'Neal believes that LeBron James's longevity is highly suspicious based upon the way the RBA is played today. He says that these new players are soft as Charmin, soft as Cottonelle. But here's what Shaquille O'Neal had to say. But this article is per MSN Sports, and the headline reads, Shaquille O'Neal questions LeBron James's longevity, rips current era of soft players. So Shaquille O'Neal appeared on a podcast, and a tweet says, quote, Shaq goes off on the current era, saying LeBron's longevity is a byproduct of how soft the league has become. He also claimed that many players today couldn't compete in past eras, especially players like Ben Simmons, who he says should be arrested for stealing $250 million of the RBA's money. Shaq says, quote, definitely. Shaq said when asked if James' longevity is a byproduct of the change in physicality. He says, quote, it's less physical right now. If you get a flagrant foul, you get fined and suspended. Guys aren't even effing fouling hard no more. He goes on to say, quote, back before I played, it was crazy. But when I played, it was crazy. People get mad. It's just a product of what I see. It says Shaq also feels the current product lacks true greatness. He says, quote, I've seen what greatness is. Been there. Played with them. I don't see that all the time over here. You want me to give these MFers the same props you're giving them? That ish will never happen. You could call it hate if you want. It goes on to say, the word soft gets thrown around by former players quite often, and it's frequently met with the word hate in response. Shaq doesn't care, arguing that he was great and doesn't see that in today's current player. He says, quote, you ain't effing great, and I'm great. How can I hate on you? That don't make no effing sense. He goes on to say, quote, Ben effing Simmons, that MFer needs to be arrested. $250 million for that robbing people, man. Now, I have to agree with Shaq about LeBron James's longevity being very questionable. But before I continue on my daily rant about LeBron James, first I want to address Shaquille O'Neal and other RBA players and critics who attack Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons receives a ton of backlash for quote-unquote robbing the RBA. But there have been so many players before Ben Simmons who have robbed the game. And as my pops always say, don't hate the player, hate the game. Ben Simmons just so happens to be a byproduct and is a pupil to LeBron James. See, Ben Simmons is the protege of LeBron James. He's a direct reflection of LeBron James. Ben Simmons is signed to Clutch Sports. So don't get mad at Ben Simmons. Get mad at Clutch Sports for striking the deal and not pushing him or encouraging him to play. Blame LeBron James. Him working hard should have been in the deal. You got to earn it or you're not going to get your money. You got to blame ownership. Ben Simmons was heavily influenced by LeBron James. The way LeBron James treats the game. LeBron James's approach to the game by not taking the game serious. Remember, we can't have it both ways. You can't in one breath give LeBron James all his praise and credit for so-called being the face and leader of player empowerment. And then you have a player like Ben Simmons who is signed to Clutch Sports or was signed to Clutch Sports, and he's taking advantage of the opportunities to make more money. So allow that man to get his money, rob the bank with no mask on. But back to LeBron James. Yes, LeBron James' longevity is very questionable. However, where me and Shaq differ is where LeBron James's longevity is a byproduct of how soft the league has become. LeBron James' longevity is not a byproduct of because the league has become so soft. No. LeBron James' longevity is a byproduct of him taking steroids allegedly. LeBron James doesn't spend $1 million per year on his body. He spends $1 million per year on steroids, allegedly, on PEDs, allegedly. Although I do agree that the game has become very soft. Players aren't physical no more. On-ball defense, the rules have changed, and players just don't take the sport as serious anymore. And LeBron James played a part in that with the flopping, the soft mentality, forming super teams, making the game far less competitive, changing the rules. It has become soft for quite some time now. But despite how soft the league has become, just considering the miles that LeBron James has put on his body, all those minutes LeBron James has played since 2003, in addition to the minutes he's played in the postseason. The fact that he's still in peak tip-top shape, the fact that he's put all those miles on his body and is still in peak tip-top shape, all those minutes and not showing no signs of decline, and then has the nerve to go in an interview and be bold enough to say that he believes that he could still play at a high level for the next 5 or 6 years is very suspicious. And if any other player such as Shaq would have shared that same sentiment, that would have raised not only eyebrows, but foreheads as well. I mean, it's sort of magical if you think about it. It's almost as if LeBron James has come in contact with a genie. No, not Genie Bus, but a genie in a bottle, such as Shazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal. Maybe LeBron James made a wish and was able to defy Father Time. But only could that happen in a children's fantasy fiction book. Just like LeBron James coming back from being down 3-1. The only player in NBA history who can accomplish that. But what I'm curious of is, forget the Michael Jordan and LeBron James debate, which he could never be in the same breath as Michael Jordan or Kobe for that matter, or any NBA legend on the Mount Rushmore. When did LeBron James surpass Shaq? When did he eclipse Shaq in the GOAT discussion? Shaq has had, if I'm not mistaken, 6 finals appearances, and he's won 4 championship rings just like LeBron James. Granted, with the last one not being as great as the first 3 championships that Shaq won with the Lakers, because Shaq gets credit for carrying Kobe Bryant, supposedly, with air quotes. He supposedly carried those Lakers teams, although Kobe held his own. But I find the double standards and the biasness quite humorous, to say the least. I mean, because when you think about it, they give LeBron James credit for leading D Wade, a player who already won a championship and finals MVP. But he already was a proven player before LeBron James joined the team. Already a leader. According to the media and Dwayne Wade himself, D Wade went to LeBron James and willingly took a backseat. He could have still been peak D Wade, but he allowed LeBron James to lead. Wouldn't that be like Shaq going to Kobe and saying, hey, we could both average 25 or 27 points per game or more, but I'm going to have to take a backseat in order for us to keep winning. So you can't have it both ways. You can't give LeBron James credit for supposedly leading a team when someone allowed him to lead that team. Then not Kobe for saying that he got carried, but he didn't get the same luxury of having someone generous enough for putting their pride and ego aside and saying, hey, you have to lead us. I'm giving you the keys. Especially when the only ring Shaq has won outside of Kobe is with Dwayne Wade. He didn't win a championship with Penny Hardaway and that old Magic team. So maybe Shaq did need Kobe more than Kobe needed Shaq. And how is it that LeBron James is better than Shaq when they both advanced to the finals and lost while they were young? I mean, Shaq records and numbers are just as impressive as LeBron James. We never put Shaq in the top 10. LeBron James will never be a better player than Shaquille O'Neal, in my opinion. Shaq went against some of the greatest bigs of all time. But yes, the league has become very soft. It's been soft since what, the mid 2000s now? That would mean other players in LeBron James draft class should still be playing, right? But the real reason I believe that LeBron James has been able to prolong his career is steroids, allegedly. Performance enhancement drugs, allegedly. There are literally people who have been linked to LeBron James who has been at the biogenics lab purchasing performance enhancement drugs. LeBron James hasn't suffered a major excruciating injury. LeBron James, he almost seems not human out there. LeBron James is still high flying, running up and down the court, keeping the same pace, keeping up with these younger guys. The conversation shouldn't be about LeBron James' longevity because of how soft the league is. The question needs to be raised, is LeBron James on steroids, allegedly? What I find quite strange about LeBron James's longevity is how long the longevity has been longevitying. I mean, LeBron James' career has been lasting longer than a line at Chick-fil-A's drive-thru.